Okay,
we're using their spare labor.
Exactly.
I'm
okay.
assuming, that might make an ass out of you. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Bay Area stats.
Well,
would
what
track
happens when
the
you
same
say,
way.
I presume? Then you make a...
Presume instead of assume?
Yeah. Welcome to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host. Here's our format. A bunch of guys sitting around a bar. There's no bar. Having drinks. There's no drinks either. But we're talking business, and you, the audience, are listening in. The Best of Investing is actually a radio show that has been around since August 2010, and it airs every Saturday on Fox News Radio, 9:10 a.m. at 1 p.m. Now, we're not a political show. We're strictly business, so everyone will be happy with that. Remember, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome. You're listening to the Best of Investing on Fox News Radio, 9:10 a.m. This is the show where we present valuable information about real estate, the financial markets, and other economic business of the day. For those of you listening for the first time, here's our format. A few guys sitting around a bar having drinks without the drinks, talking business with you, the audience, listening in. I'm your host, Edward Brown, and today we have another special guest who we've had in the studio before, Mike Zaidlin, a registered investment advisor. But introduce yourself a little bit more about what you're going to talk about today.
Sure, Edward. Thanks for having me back. My name is Mike Zaidlin. I work here in San Rafael, and I am a wealth manager, which basically means I provide financial planning, investment advice, and estate planning for individuals and small businesses.
So, Mike, today we're going to talk a little bit about retirement accounts, I understand.
That's a great subject. Almost everyone's, or most people have one or will potentially inherit one or consider having one.
I want to retire.
Don't we all?
And this time of year, of course, we've got, it's Christmas Eve, and we've got maybe a little bit less than a week to do our year-end tax planning. It's usually about when I start, so, although I guess when it comes to retirement accounts, in order to do some tax planning that might impact 2011, I understand we have a little bit longer than December 31st to make some planning decisions. Is that true?
That's right, Mark. You have until April 15th to make a contribution to your IRA or Roth IRA or SEP, simple IRA, for the 2011 tax year.
Awesome. So what should people know when they're deciding who to leave their retirement benefits to?
Well, that's a big question.
Just leave it to me.
Yeah. We're available.
Well, obviously, the decision as to who to leave money to or any assets to is complicated and very personal. And what I try to do is always make sure that my clients understand simply the implications of choosing who they've chosen to do that for, or using that information to make another decision. But information is always helpful, education is always good, and so what I'd like to do here is just provide some of that so that can be of some help to people to consider things they may not have thought of before. The greatest benefit for passing on retirement assets, whether that's a work plan, a retirement plan, such as a defined benefit pension plan, a 401k, or a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, the greatest benefits are usually achieved by leaving it to a spouse. And the reason for that is the spouse is the only person who can roll over into his or her own IRA the inherited account that she receives or he receives from someone else. Anyone else who receives retirement benefits through inheritance is going to end up having to use their own life expectancy. And not only that, but the implication of that is that the successor, whoever receives that after that person has passed away, will be also using, the original beneficiary's life expectancy. And so what that really entails or means is that if you leave it to a spouse and a spouse can roll it over, that spouse no longer is the beneficiary of the inherited account, but is now the owner and can therefore leave it to his or her grandchildren or anyone else and stretch out the retirement benefits for perhaps another 50 or 60 years. And given the importance of stretching out retirement benefits, it's important for two reasons. One, the longer you can stretch it out, the less you've had to take out the required distributions that you may not even need, but that a future generation may need. And secondly, it allows the continual building up of wealth within that account.
And you talked about how an inherited IRA works. That's the mechanics of that transaction. But what about an employer-sponsored plan? Can those be inherited and passed on as well? And how does that work?
Absolutely, absolutely. Upon termination of your employment, first of all, you can roll over your say 401k plan or 403b into your own IRA. The other thing is any workplace plan can be left to an heir.
So if you wanted to roll that over into your own IRA, you can't do that while you still work for the company if it's an employer-sponsored plan, right? You have to actually quit your job in order to get the money into your own account, right?
Correct. Although it depends on the specific plan. Some plans allow for an in-service distribution at age 62. Others don't allow it at all while you're still working. So it really depends. The plans can be all very unique to each other.
In other words, they need to get an expert like you that knows what the nuances are to figure it out, right?
Well, they really should, because there are so many unforgiving rules and so many nuances that have to do with these plans. Even the smallest mistake, or what appeared to be the smallest mistake, for example, if an IRA is left to someone but it doesn't go into a designated inheritance account, an inherited IRA, and let's say it ends up being transferred to that person's own account and he or she is not a spouse, that's an immediate distribution and that's fully taxable right then and there. So
what about
there are
borrowing,
a lot
though?
of implications. So.
I mean, you can borrow against pension plans, right? What are the rules about that?
Well, if your plan allows for it, you can usually borrow against your 401k or 403b. However, there are a lot of rules to that too. For example, you've got to pay the loan back in full before you terminate, or that could be considered an immediate distribution as well.
And are there limitations as to how much you can borrow?
It could depend on the plan.
Okay, rather than the
depend on
IRS
the plan.
So going back, to the complexity and why someone should engage someone like you, Michael, for your services, how do we end up with so many retirement plans? I get dizzy when I hear all the names, SEP and KEO and this and that and
Top
Roth
heavy.
Well, yeah.
Age-weighted profit-sharing plans.
I actually had two friends on my Little League team named Sepp and Keo, so that's how I got into the business. So. No, it is complex, and part of the reason is in the old days, almost I think 80 or 90% of Americans were covered by defined benefit pension plans. But through the years, those have been considered to be cost prohibitive for businesses, and they've offloaded the responsibility of having them. And so now we've come up with IRAs and Roths and all sorts of individual retirement accounts, and more people are probably self-employed than ever before as well. So
plus, people who write plans like this need job security of creating more and more instruments.
Well, it's just like the accountants with the tax code.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to cut to our first commercial break. We're in the studio here with Mike Zabelin, who's given us some great information about retirement plans, pretty much all the kind of questions that all you listeners are interested in. And here is our first trivia question. Again, remember that the theme is Who Blew It? Who was the University of Michigan basketball player who blew it when he called a timeout when his team had none remaining in 1993, which cost his team the championship? Hint, he was part of the Fab Five. Now, not Fab Four like the Beatles, but part of the Fab Five. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host. I'm in the studio here with Mark Hanf of Pacific Private Money, Brian Burke of Praxis Capital, and our special guest, Mike Zabelin of Madrone Retirement Investors. And he's going to be talking more about retirement planning right after I give the question that we cut to commercial break with. Who was the University of Michigan basketball player who blew it when he called a timeout when his team had none remaining in 1993, which cost his team the championship against North Carolina? And I'm looking at blank stares. Chris Webber. Oh, yeah, I remember him.
Yeah.
Played for the Warriors, and
Yeah,
PJ Carlesimo with the choking incident and all that.
I think that was Latrell Sprewell.
You're right. You're right. It was Latrell
That could have
Sprewell.
been another trivia question.
That's right. And remember, Latrell had said when he was offered a $100 million contract and he wanted more, he says, "Hey, man, I got to feed my family." Yeah, I like that one.
I remember that. That's
Mark,
great.
you wanted to lead in with a question.
Yeah. Michael, in 2010 there was a big deal made about an opportunity, and I guess it was a one-time opportunity in 2010 to convert your traditional pre-tax IRAs into what's called a Roth. I guess it's post-tax, or maybe there's a better explanation for that. But is there still a reason to do that today? And if so, what are some of the factors you would take into consideration in converting your traditional to a Roth IRA?
Sure. Well, what you're referring to, I think, is what happened in 2010
Yes.
when a one-time, the ability to roll over your Roth into an IRA, roll over your traditional IRA into a Roth,
Right.
allowed you to split the tax over 2011 and 2012. So that was a really special deal.
Yeah, I want to have my.
You want to do over?
Oh no, I want to flip it. I want to have my Roth go into my regular traditional IRA.
Well, let's take care
Sorry,
of this
go ahead.
one first.
Now that the audience is confused.
Yeah, but going after tax and making it something pre-tax. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, Mark, that there are still a lot of good reasons to consider, not necessarily to do, but to consider rolling a traditional IRA into a Roth. So, the factors that, well, basically, so that everyone understands this, what happens is when you have a traditional IRA, you have money in an account that has not yet been taxed. The tax has been deferred. It's a deferred account. A Roth, on the other hand, consists typically of post-tax dollars. The tax has already been paid. And so when you have a traditional IRA, you more or less should probably assume something like about a third of that is going to go to the government when it's taxed. And it will be
Upon distributions.
Upon distributions. Now, again, that could be higher or lower. It depends on your tax bracket.
Right.
It could be taxed as high as 50%, or it could be taxed as high as 70% if tax rates go up. We don't know. Or it could be low.
Or they might even come to a point where they start taxing it inside. I'm sort of predicting
Your
that.
conspiracy
I
theory.
know.
I know, you keep bringing
There's
that
a
up every few
revenue
shows.
raise method there.
Well, there certainly could always be legislation passed on, quote, excess distributions over a certain amount, and that's, I think, happened before. But we don't know the future, and but the factors that usually go into this are, how many years will I have before I need to take money out of the Roth? The more years you have, the more that money is going tax-free or growing tax-free. So if you convert $10,000 from your traditional IRA, pay the tax on whatever it is, and you may not have to pay much tax if you didn't have much income this year, or if there are certain other factors that apply, or you may have to. The higher the tax that you pay now, the more years that you're going to want it to grow in the Roth to compensate for how much tax you've had to pay. So that's one factor. The other factor is, do you expect or have any reason to believe that your tax rates are going to be lower years from now, or higher? If they're going to be higher years from now, that's another reason to convert to a Roth now.
I suspect they might be higher.
Well, that's the common wisdom, but the common wisdom has often been wrong too. And so a good strategy is to keep money in all different accounts: traditional IRAs, Roths, and taxable accounts.
So you're recommending that your clients have both types of accounts: the traditional IRA that allows you to defer taxes on contributions, and then the Roth IRA, which you put in after-tax money, but it grows tax-free.
Right, you actually get a tax deduction for putting the money in the IRA, right? And it accumulates tax
Right,
deferred, so you
exactly.
get kind of that double benefit. The interesting thing here, though, and again, this is the conspiracy theory part of me. I think what the government, and please do not be listening to this show at the time when I'm saying this. I think at some point what they're going to do is, if there's too many people putting money in Roth IRAs, they're going to look at that big bucket of cash and they're going to go, you know what? Why don't we just start taxing that? Because remember, Social Security used to be off limits. Right? They didn't tax that before. I mean, how can you tax this after-tax money? Well, what's the difference?
Everything's on the table.
Everything is on the table. So that's just
true.
my own personal thing about Roth.
Right. Well, all of those things are true. The other risk that people take when they do convert to a Roth is that they're now bearing the entire investment, the whole risk of it on their own. Whereas in a traditional IRA, if the government basically has a claim on about a third of it, if the account goes down, you haven't prepaid the tax on it. So that's something to consider as a factor. I mean, it's hard to know how investments will do over the years, but it's good to know that you're going to be bearing the risk of having prepaid the tax, and if the investments go down, it could turn out to not be a great deal. But given the long-term historical record of how investments have done, with a diversified portfolio of low-cost index funds, say, the returns over many, many years have been anywhere from 6 to 8%. Will that continue in the future? Nobody knows, but we all have to make some plans and use some assumptions.
Are most Roth IRAs self-directed? Because I hear a lot about self-directed Roth IRAs.
Well, the term, and Brian and I were talking about this before the show, the term self-directed from a legal standpoint, or the point from that has often been referred to originally, was simply an account that you had, an IRA that you had at, say, Schwab, that you picked the stocks and bonds yourself in, and that was what we refer to as self-directed.
Traditional self-directed. If we want to really confuse
A traditional Roth self-directed.
Well, and self-directed applies to Roths and to regular IRAs, as well as to your to your 401k to some degree, because you have an investment menu and you can often choose within that menu, unless you have a self-directed brokerage account. But nowadays, the term commonly is used when people say self-directed. They mean holding real estate or having an alternative investment
Well, yeah, 'cause
besides stocks and
it's
bonds.
not self-administered. You have to have a third-party independent administrator.
Well,
That's
you know,
different.
well, in an IRA, you can never hold title to the assets. They always have to be held by a custodian or so.
And there's a bunch of custodians I know. Some of the largest in the country are based here in the Bay Area, and many of them will allow you, if you have an account with them, you can, as you said, buy real estate, or you can invest in real estate secured notes. You can do equity investments. You can do all
Well, we
kinds of
have
interesting things.
we have a lot of investors in the Praxis funds that are using self-directed IRA money, and I would suspect, Mark, you probably have some of your investors in private money loans that are also using self-directed IRA
Absolutely, you can
account
invest
money.
in what's called trust deed investments,
Right.
which is really a financing instrument.
So this is where we're getting into real estate and alternative investments within an
Yeah.
IRA, and
Well-
that's what we call a self-directed IRA.
Well, I actually have a question about that, and that is, with holding real estate in an IRA, obviously you have to make sure that the title is held properly.
Correct.
Yes.
But also, how do you handle the unrelated business taxable income from that?
Yeah,
Because
anything over $1,000.
over $1,000.
Or on leveraged real estate, if they own leveraged real estate within the portfolio, then they could be subject to that UBIT or UBTI, as it's sometimes called. And what we've found with some of our clients is they're going to be subject to that unrelated business income tax, but with the high returns that they're getting from making equity investments, they're netting more money even after paying that tax
So
than they would have otherwise.
investing in a, well, wait a minute though, people investing in your funds, are they going to actually be subject, their IRAs, to UBTI?
Yeah, they are in a lot of cases. If the property is leveraged, which in most cases property is typically leveraged, then they'll be subject to the tax. I'm not quite exactly clear on how this works. You almost have to be a tax attorney to figure it out. It's so complicated, but it's on the portion of the investment that's levered. So if you own property that's 80% levered, 20% cash, then you're going to be paying UBIT somehow calculated off of 80% of the value of that asset.
Okay, and on that,
It's confusing.
And on that confusing
Yeah.
break, we're going to go to our second commercial break. Welcome, you're listening to the best of investing on News Talk 910. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know it's where we present valuable information about real estate, the financial markets, and other economic business of the day. For those of you listening for the first time, here's our format. Imagine a bunch of guys sitting around a bar, talking business with you, the audience, listening in. I'm your host, Edward Brown, and I'm pleased to have as my co-host Mark Hanf of Pacific Private Money, California's fastest growing private lender, and Lou Botmal of LPL Financial. And today's trivia theme is World War One.
Oh, I'm going to fail that one.
Whoa.
History.
You know? No, good. Okay, well, no, yeah, I think the questions aren't
Who
too
was
hard.
in that?
Who was in that? Yeah.
Is that the Giants and the A's?
It's called World War One for a reason of the world. Okay, our website is bestofinvesting.com. Check us out on YouTube by typing Best of Investing Radio Show on Comcast, because we are also on television. Comcast Channel 26 on Saturdays at noon and Sundays at 6 p.m. Today's special guest is Dan Bornstein, who is an attorney who specializes in tax. And since we're getting kind of close to the end of the year, we thought we'd talk a little bit of taxes. Dan, welcome to the Best of Investing.
Thank you, Edward. It's
Okay.
a pleasure to be here.
Good. So tell us, what do you got on your plate you want to share with us?
Well, I think everybody needs to know that there's going to be a substantial change in the estate tax rules starting next year. If you are aware, under the Bush administration, the estate tax rules changed significantly in terms of the amount you could give away without paying estate taxes.
Well, yeah, we talked about that once before. That,
In favor of rich people, right?
Yeah, well...
We want to do away with those guys.
Well, if you remember,
Not we.
George Steinbrenner, he was smart. He
Right.
died in 2010 when there was
Right.
no estate tax. But go ahead.
And the Taco Bell guy.
Oh, him too?
Yeah, I think
you
he
mean the
did,
dog?
yeah. No, no,
Oh,
no.
the guy. I thought you meant the dog.
Not the Chihuahua.
The owner of
Not the
Taco Bell.
Chihuahua. Okay. Go ahead.
So basically, the Bush plan ended in 2010, and at that point, as you're saying, you could give away an unlimited amount of money without paying any estate taxes. Well, in 2010, under the Obama administration, they passed the Tax Relief, Unemployment Insurance, Authorization, and Job Creation Act of 2010.
Was there an acronym for that?
Yeah, I knew he was going to come up with something. Crap.
Well, it doesn't sound like it has anything to do with estate plans
Not really.
or estate tax, but it did.
Okay.
What it did is it changed the exemption amount to $5 million, but it kept the top tax rate at 35%.
Okay, so 5 million and 35%.
And that's for 2010 or
2011.
2011. So that's
2010 was
last year. So you had to have died already.
Right, and in 2012, it went up to 5.12 million, just adjusted for inflation.
Okay, not too big a deal. Okay, but
But beginning next year, because Congress hasn't passed another plan, the exemption is going to go from 5 million to 1 million, and the top tax rate changes from 35% to 55%.
okay, so if I'm smart, I'll die this year.
That would be a good idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got 3 months left.
Okay,
Work on
yeah,
it,
really.
Rich.
I think I'll go on vacation.
Get working on it.
Get working on it.
When vacations attack. Okay, sorry.
So if you've made an estate plan or made a plan based on the exemption schemes in the last 10 years, it is time to go back to your estate planning attorney or financial advisor and revisit your estate plan, because some of the assumptions you've made or that we've made over the last 10 years are about to change quite dramatically.
I mean, how can anybody plan when they have these changes? I mean, from 5 million down to a million. I mean, I can imagine a lot of people being in that 1 to 5 million range. And the rate went up, you said, from 35 to 55? God, can you imagine giving more than half away?
Sounds
And
like-
that's
Yeah,
just
no.
federal.
No,
What about
the-
state?
No, there's no estate tax in California, but if you own property in another state, you may be paying estate tax in another state.
Yes. You know, the scariest thing is I read an article about this. Recently, they tried ratifying this law before the fiscal cliff discussions happened. They specifically wanted for state tax. And 2 states, I think it was South Dakota and Arkansas, held it up. Now, who's from there? South Dakota is all that gas money now, and Arkansas is the Waltons. And that's why the whole estate tax thing went kibosh. They blamed it on those 2
I'm
senators.
thinking of the TV show, The
Yeah,
Wall. You're talking
no,
about Sam Walton.
Sam Walton, yeah.
Well, John Boy. You know,
That's they deflected the whole thing because they said, hey, we don't want to deal with that right now. They rather it go in when they have more leverage.
I thought it
true
maybe had to
con-
do with the Clintons. Aren't they
No.
from Arkansas?
Yeah, they are, but they don't have that much money.
Well,
Just
Well, they're
doesn't-
from New York right now.
that's
Yeah,
true.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. Carpetbagger.
Carpetbagger. So, what else you want to share with us on that? So, what kind of plan? What kind
What
of
should we do?
What should we do? Dan?
Well, it's time to go back to your financial advisor and your estate planning attorney. Now, President Obama did make a new proposal for the estate tax, and what he was going to do was to decrease the amount you could give away to 3.5 million and increase the maximum tax rate to 45%. Unfortunately, this didn't pass, and so now we're back to the default pre-Bush administration rules.
Because I was going to make an announcement that if anyone wanted to give me their 3.5, I'd be glad to take it.
Well, I
Now it doesn't sound like it's going to work because Congress didn't pass it.
I'm a financial advisor, and I have several clients that have gifted significant assets this year just because they can. They don't know where it's going next year. I also had a client this year take his bonus ahead because I'm taking my bonus now because I don't know where the taxes are going to be next year. This is all coming down the pipeline as you're talking about it. I mean, it's really
Well, I don't know. I've always been
And it's
of
not
the
just
persuasion of
estate
pushing
taxes
taxes.
you're
yeah,
talking
off.
yeah. No, it's the fiscal cliff, and all these things are coming. This is very important stuff. This
Yeah,
is
it is.
key. This is very key.
Get out and vote.
Yeah, and most people do not go back and look at their estate plans. You do it once,
Yeah.
you figure it's done correctly. It's not expensive to go make an amendment to your trust. It's really inexpensive, and when you consider what the expenses would be if you don't plan for taxation appropriately, it's a no-brainer to go back to your estate planning attorney and at least have this discussion.
Well, can you put a provision in there that just says whatever the best tax situation at the time when I die, do that?
I don't think the IRS is going to approve language like that.
Oh, that doesn't
As
work
Edward's
well.
talking, his family just called up and talked about disinheritance of it.
Hey, nobody gets my $3 but me. All right, hey guys, we're going to cut to a quick, short break here, and remember the theme is World War I.
Now, back then, did they call it World War I?
I think it took a while.
No, it was the
It's
Great
World
War.
War. Yeah, the Great War.
They
Yeah,
always
right.
call it the Great War
Yeah.
until there's another one.
Yeah, exactly. And audience,
I was kidding, by the way.
Don't forget also that we're not. Don't forget, but make sure you stay tuned with us because Dan's got some
tips.
some real tips for us. Yeah, and it is which British liner was torpedoed by a German wartime U-boat, leading to the theory that it was a ploy to involve the U.S. in World War I. Don't answer yet, there, Dan. I know it's on the tip of your tongue, and we'll be right back. Good.
It's called Lusitania.
It is the Lusitania.
And they stuck a bunch of munitions on a passenger ship and pretty much let the Germans know. That is correct. They wanted to get us in the war, and so they stuck a bunch of weapons in a passenger ship with a bunch of Americans on it. The British.
The British, yeah. You know what? And
It had weapons on it.
and you know what? Germany knew that that was going on, and they sent a press release out in the United States saying, "Listen, passengers do not go on that boat. We know there's munitions on it, and we're going to blow it up." And only one paper picked it up in Iowa. Okay, so this segment we'll continue on and give some tidbits.
Nuggets.
Right? Nuggets, as we say. Okay, you guys ready? Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hoff of Pacific Private Money and Lou Botmall of LPL Financial, and our special guest, Dan Bornstein, tax attorney. When we cut to the first commercial break, we asked this first trivia question. Which British liner was torpedoed by a German wartime U-boat, i.e. submarine, leading to the theory that it was a ploy to involve the U.S. in World War I? Dan, I think you know the answer to that.
It was the Lusitania.
It was the Lusitania. Very good. Now, Dan, you are a tax attorney. You're sharing with us some tidbits. You're going to give some advice.
Well, as we talked about in the prior segment, the estate tax planning or the exemption has changed a couple of times recently. And as I said, there's been a proposal to change it to $3.5 million and a top rate of 45%. What does this tell us? We don't know what's going to happen in the future. They will come back to this and they will make a change, but we have no idea what it will be. So there are some strategies to reduce the value of your estate or freeze the value of your estate that will work no matter what happens to the new estate planning exemption law.
Okay.
The first one is very simple, and it's called the annual exclusion. This is the ability of any individual to give another individual or a trust $13,000 per year per donee. Now, imagine you are husband and wife, and you have 2 kids, and each of the kids has, say, only one grandchild or one child. What we have here is you and your wife combined can give to not only your child, but your child's spouse and your grandchild $26,000 a year combined. If you've got a child, a spouse, a grandchild, another child, a spouse, and a grandchild, you've got 6 different people who can receive $26,000 a year. That's $156,000 per year you can get out of your estate. There is no tax liability to you nor to the children, and that is just an easy, simple way to get money out of your estate.
Okay. So that's assuming that you want to give it to them. Because once you give it to them, it's gone.
Well, it could be cash or net worth too. You got to remember, it could be a piece of something, a piece of a building, a piece of a home, a piece of something.
But
So-
then how much
right.
control do you
Yeah.
lose, though, on that?
Not much after a long. It takes a long time. If you have $1 million house, it takes how long to gift? It's 10 years. You're gifting it.
That's with the annual exclusion amount.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if you're talking about some more advanced issues, and I don't really want to get into them now, certain people create family limited partnerships and limited liability companies. And if you gift small percentages of those assets, you get a very nice discount on the value of the asset, and therefore you can transfer a lot more than $13,000 of actual value.
Yeah, because
for-
10% of $1 million building isn't $100,000 because of
Correct.
the discount.
Exactly.
I
And when
understand
you
that.
start talking about putting these buildings into family limited partnerships,
Oh, it
the
really
discount
discounts, yeah.
gets substantial.
Sure, because who wants to buy a 5% of a limited partnership that owns a building? I mean, what's the market value for that?
Yeah, not
Basically,
much.
Not much.
Yeah, I mean, the IRS has approved discounts of 45% and more, or 55% and more on
Yay,
liquid
IRS.
securities.
I wouldn't go
Liquid
that
stocks.
far.
Liquids?
Yeah,
Stocks.
in family limited partnerships.
Actual cash.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Well, how liquid?
They're stocks. You
They're
can sell them
stocks.
anytime you want.
Yeah,
So,
but there's got to be a decent market. It's not like IBM.
Yeah. Yes.
All of it.
Yes. So let's say we're all one family sitting in
Okay.
this room drinking beers, talking about taxes, and just for
my
the sake of
favorite
argument, and let's say we're all brothers, and our dad's had a bunch of Chevron stocks. He worked there for a number of years. Let's say it was like, 30,000 shares,
Okay.
worth a lot of money in today's market.
Yeah.
And they started building this family limited partnership and started using those annual exclusions we're talking about and gifting a little bit to the kids.
Yeah.
Well, right now we own 60%, and our parents own 40% of that family limited partnership.
Oh, okay. So you're not. It's not the
Yeah.
actual stock. It's the limited partnership that owns the stock.
Right,
That's,
exactly.
Okay, there
so
you
you
go.
put it in the limited partnership, then you have a fractional interest in it.
Now I
So
get,
it
like I
gets
said,
discounted.
6 years of high school. If I finally figured it out.
It's
Yes.
not just fractional interest, it's lack of marketability.
Right.
There's only a certain number of people to whom this limited partnership can be sold, and therefore, instead of an open market, which is what every stock is sold on,
Yeah, the limited
this
partnership
this
is
is
not.
this is a limited market, and therefore you get not only a fractional interest, but a lack of marketability
Yeah.
discount, which really increases
Sure.
the
Well,
savings.
especially, I guess, in the documents of the family limited partnership, you might even be able to put extra restrictions.
No, and back to
If you
that,
want.
that's why some people use life insurance as a tool, because you gift $13,000 a year of premium, and that buys how much life insurance. It goes right underneath the estate tax radar. It's
Exactly.
a beautiful tool. So yeah,
Oh, it is.
a husband and wife put $26,000 of life insurance policy. They could buy potentially $1.5 million worth of life insurance.
Yeah.
And they fund it for 10 or 15 years right before they pass away. That's worth more than the actual gifts.
So, and you're not even talking about an irrevocable trust at that point.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
If you're just giving them the
Older kids,
13,000.
when my clients have older kids, I said, why bother with it? Have them buy it from you.
Yeah.
You can gift the money and they can buy it. So.
That's-
So-
Yeah, I mean,
That's
we
a very
have
good point.
we have irrevocable life insurance trusts for estates that are illiquid,
Yeah.
and they'll need the money eventually to pay
pay
the
the
estate
tax.
taxes.
for
so-
an illiquid estate.
Well, if you own a bunch of appreciated property, it's going to be real difficult to or sometimes impossible to liquidate some of it just to pay the IRS. So
Yeah,
why
or
bother?
even borrow,
Right.
borrow against it, because with the banks not being that free with money to lend to those kind of situations.
That's when you call Pacific private money.
There you go. See, boy, we're involving everybody here.
Well,
I'm
no,
telling you.
hard money.
I mean, no, the real thing. No, it's a good point. But the real issue you run into is that's how people lose control of family-held companies. A lot of times, it's the estate
Yeah.
tax. They can't come up with the money to pay the estate tax. I have one client that paid, I think, $1.5 million over 15 years. They had to pay like $100,000 a year to pay off the estate tax to keep the company.
The bottom line is that
Oh,
is
that's-
that estate planning is crucial. If there's any assets, be it a business or real estate or what have you in the family, you've got an aging parent and you've got annually changing estate tax issues that need to be addressed.
I
That's
personally
right.
am just against the estate tax because it's basically double taxation. Why should there be any taxes when you're just transferring it from one person to another?
So Bill Gates' great grandkids don't own the country. That's why you have it. Plain and simple.
This
That's
was-
the
You're
only-
such a socialist.
The estate
No, that's,
I'm teasing.
I talked to every attorney out there. That's what they say. That's the only reason for it. That's the only reason they can come up with.
Yeah, but then they come up with great tax attorneys like Dan here to make sure they don't pay those taxes.
Oh, come on, Romney's paying 13% on whatever he makes. So there's ways to avoid that.
I am not a socialist. I don't believe in
I
state
was
taxes. But no,
teasing you.
you're right. That's one of the reasons. That's why they have it, so they can
Yeah,
perpetuate wealth.
But also, I mean, if you're
That's
talking
it.
about here, the exemption going down to $1 million. I mean,
Right.
come on.
No,
That's a little bit much.
I was in the business when it was 625. You remember those
Oh,
days
yeah,
too,
I
and everyone was
remember
buying
that.
life insurance because they had, their homes were worth more than that. So.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
remember
$1
that.
million in the Bay Area is one thing. $1 million in some
Yeah.
poor area in Arkansas is quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
So it's a national standard. So you got to keep that into.
But you do
take that
get-
into consideration.
And that's not the gross value of the estate, right? Because you get to deduct the liabilities against it.
That's correct.
It's the net estate.
and the cost of administration and things
Sure.
like that.
Okay.
But getting back to your World War I theme, the estate tax was actually developed during World War I, and people like Andrew Carnegie got behind the concept of an estate tax. I wonder why he founded a university. Maybe because he didn't get taxed on that money. But-
Interesting.
Yeah. It was
Wow.
developed and supported by some of the wealthiest, what they called robber barons in the
Oh,
country.
yeah. Wow.
So maybe they were socialists too. I don't think so.
Not at all.
I don't know.
They were limousine Republicans. Or limousine Democrats. Which one is it? I don't know.
They call it Democrats and Republicans. And this is off the trivia grid, but you know what killed more people than the actual war?
The plague.
That's basically influenza.
Right.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much. Stay in the studio if you'd like. We're going to talk a little bit about financial stuff and real estate and stuff other than taxes. Okay, here's our second trivia question. What was the name of the German ace who was famous for his expertise in dogfights, shooting down 80 planes? And Lou is writing down the answer.
Snoopy knows who that was.
Well, I was going to say, that's very good.
That's a big hint. That is a big wrong hint. Yeah.
That's right.
I wrote it down to keep it secret.
From the famous Paul Revere and the Raiders famous song.
Yeah.
Very good. That's right. And we'll be right back.
That went from a
You're
Google
not gonna-
search to a layup.
You are not going to let him get away with calling him the Red Baron. His name was Baron von Richthofen. You better make
what was
them
his what was his middle name?
I don't know.
Vaughn.
No. He was from Richthofen.
P-A-U-D-H-N, right?
Like Rick Vaughn, the big.
So do you have his middle name?
Manfred. The Red Baron, Baron Manfred von Richthofen.
No. Manfred's his first name. Von Richthofen is his last name, believe it or not.
What's his middle
Oh,
name?
you're right.
They don't
I
have it.
apologize. You're right,
What's
because
that?
Baron is not really his name.
Baron's a title,
That's
Manfred's a
You're
first name, and
absolutely
von
right.
Richthofen is just a last name. It's like
You're right.
like some of those Dutch guys or D
Oh, right, yeah.
something
Yeah.
or Van Piercy or Van
Or
this.
Van
Mall.
Just
Yeah,
means
Van
from.
Heusen.
Fawn means from. That's it.
That's very, very
F-V-O-N. Fawn.
You're so
Right.
fun to have around here.
Well, I'm a history major,
Let's-
dude.
got it.
It's like our oil companies are Kretsu.
Okay.
They conspire together
Right.
to fix
And
prices.
oligopoly.
Oligopoly, yes.
Oligopoly. I like that.
I remember that. Pure competition. I remember
When
that.
when they raise gas, like the same day 20 cents, you know that's not what they paid for the stuff in the ground.
Of
That's
course
what
not.
Oh, it's so manipulative.
Yeah.
Oh, no, and they're paying somebody in Chicago at the futures trading, to jerk around the price so they can make more money. I mean,
Oh, it's, yeah,
the
they
highest
control
profit
it from the front to the back to the market.
ridiculous. Okay, so do you want to stick around? Do you have time? We're going to be talking other stuff, and you can chime in with questions and stuff if you want.
You know what? Can I make a phone call real quick before we start again?
Yeah.
You've got 8 seconds. Go ahead. Can you make it that? I'm just kidding.
Physical cliff.
Okay, so we'll go with these, and then remind me for the last segment. We'll
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that one.
that's,
That'll be
that's,
good.
that's fine. I don't
Okay.
need a bunch of time, but I thought I'd bring something.
Okay.
Mark didn't bring anything. I thought I'd step in for him. Harlow,
He
interesting.
had a feeling that I was going to
I thought he was gonna
just
roll.
show up.
Just win.
He's rolling in on a Friday. He's like, oh, it's tough tequila Thursday, and I got
Tough tequila Thursday.
I was out speaking last night, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I was out.
Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hanf of Pacific Private Money and Lou Botmall of LPL Financial. And when we cut to the second commercial break, we asked this trivia question: what was the name of the German ace who was famous for his expertise in dogfights, shooting down 80 planes? And of course, we're talking World War I. And what was the answer?
Snoopy?
Snoopy? No, Snoopy shot him down in the Paul
Peanuts.
Revere and the Raiders famous song.
Curse you!
Curse
Red
you!
Baron.
Red Baron, that's right,
Yes.
the Red
And
Baron.
what was his full name? Her real
Baron-
name. We were talking about that off the air.
Baron Manfred von Richthofen.
Yeah, that guy was pretty much nails, huh?
Oh, he
was
was
Top.
nails.
He was Top Gun before
He
there
was
was
Top
Top
Gun.
Gun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen,
He was Tom Cruise before he was Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he was in one of those biplanes. I've been in one of those things. That is scary stuff. Okay, we are going to get right into email time here. And Mark, the email we received from a listener asks, what are the current interest rates that you charge borrowers, and how much do your investors earn?
We originate loans to real estate investors, usually short-term loans, 12 months, sometimes 6 months, and we fund those loans through our growing list of just regular people who have savings. Oftentimes it's through their self-directed IRAs. If you have a self-directed IRA, you can invest in alternative asset classes that include making loans, making trust deed secured loans as they call it, which is what we do, or you can even buy real estate in your IRA. So we have two types of clients. We've got our borrower clients who come to us for short-term loans, and then we've got our lender or investor clients who put their money to good use because they can earn returns of averaging 8 to 10% annualized interest-only payments on their invested funds. And again, this is short-term, so we're not asking them to commit, for 3, 5, 7 years. This is usually a 1 to 2 year commitment for a loan to a real estate investor whose exit strategy is probably to sell the property. So that's how you generally get
Or
paid off.
refinance with
Or
someone
refinance
else.
with a bank.
Well,
So-
and that's what I've done. Is I've gotten my IRA invested in an 8% first deed of trust. So my IRA's earning 8%, and I'm not paying taxes on it because it's in my IRA.
Right.
No, then that's one of the best ways to grow your self-directed IRA, in my opinion, is to invest in trust deed secured notes.
Yep.
Or if you know how to invest in real estate, of course, invest
No,
in real
mine's
estate.
in a deed of trust, just
Yeah,
like what you're
but if you're looking for passive income that returns a high yield, there aren't many better investment vehicles than a trust deed secured note. So, getting back to the question, if I remember it, was
the interest rates that you
the
charge.
yeah,
and
the interest rates that I
your
charge
investors.
lenders versus the interest rates that I then give to my lender clients. So there is a spread. And so, for example, if I make a loan to a real estate investor at 10%, which is not an uncommon note rate, oftentimes I will I will offer it to my investors at 9%. Now, that would be a 1% spread, and that is basically what I would sometimes call a servicing spread, because we service the loans. In other words, the borrower is going to pay us, and then we're going to pay our investor, and we pay our investor monthly. So there's a servicing spread, and it averages anywhere from a 0.5 point to 2 points. So it really kind of depends on the nature of the loan, the term of the loan, and whether or not there's variables for every loan. Where's the property located? What kind of borrower is it? Is a high FICO borrower? So we're trying to kind of normalize the yields and the returns that we give out. So it's so let's just say for argument's sake, it's generally a 1% difference.
That's very, very fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, you borrow 10% and you pay your clients 9%.
Well, and the bottom line is I'm a little bit surprised by the spread question, because it's almost really irrelevant to either of my clients, because really my borrower client just wants to know, what's this money going to cost me?
Yeah.
And my lender clients, all they want to know is, hey, do you got any of those great loans? What do you got on your desk now? Is there anything? I've got money. I've got $100,000 I want to put to work. What do you got?
Exactly.
And so, and so for me, it is, part of my business model is obviously, making money on points up front, which the borrower pays, and then making a servicing spread on the note. So, it's essentially my loan that I'm putting together. I'm creating
Sure.
this vehicle, and then I'm offering it at a specific rate to the investor. So whether
Well, you're doing all the hard due diligence ahead of time to see
Yeah.
if it even passes muster with you.
So one of my goals, obviously, over time, is to actually increase the spread that I earn on those notes, because what's happening is, as there's more and more competition among hard money lenders in the Bay Area, and there is, because a lot of money is starting to pay attention to this, this growing industry of private money lending, and so that's driving pricing down. And so I've got more and more borrowers are calling me, going, well, I only want to pay these number of points, not the number of points you're quoting. And so I have to make it up somewhere. So where most of us in the industry are making it up is we're making it up in the yield spread. So we're growing
Sure.
that yield spread. So
Yeah,
again,
and at some point you're getting very, very close to bank rates. So you'd have a lot of good quality loans coming by your way, because it's not that far difference between you and the bank at that point.
well, that's right. And bottom line is if you're an investor out there looking to increase the yield that you earn annually on your savings portfolio, in a zero interest rate environment, 8% is killer. I mean, that is just great.
Yeah, that's a really good rate.
And when someone says, well, can I get 9? It's almost like, really?
Yeah, and that's exactly what you say. Really?
Yeah, what do you get in
So-
a CD?
Okay, now we got one. I've got an email here for Lou, and this person says, I basically I'm going to take the long email and shorten it. Lou, I know that you are a financial advisor. Loved hearing you on the show. What distinguishes you among other financial advisors?
Besides a great head of hair.
Yeah, other than my height, let's see. No, there's a couple things. I tend to be pretty nice to clients I work with, and what I mean by that is I do a lot of work up front for people. People come to me, they have issues. Either they're lost in what they do with their allocation, how they should handle their estate plan, what they should do about retirement, and I'll probably tackle those issues before I engage them as a client, just because I know they come from respected resources where they, hey, my accountant or attorney told me I got to take care of this stuff. Help me, please.
Oh, okay.
And people, like getting stuff done really quickly. I am mostly a fee-only advisor. I do little transaction work. I don't do a lot of work with products that carry surrender fees or long-term commitments, because people eventually need their money because they can find better investments, like from Mark, or they eventually need money for things like college or retirement. I do a lot of income investing. The biggest thing is that, when I engage clients, it's more of a, do I want to work with this person? Do they want to work with me? Here's my strategy. This is what I do. This is how you're going to have available to your money. And that's the most important thing. And I try to expand the most for my clients I can when it comes to the returns, expanding their net worth, or controlling their assets as best they can.
Well, I think what's been great having you on the show all this time as a co-host is, you are very intelligent. So, you're a wealth of resource. It's amazing the kind of stuff that you come up with on the show to expand the financial knowledge, for the listeners. And so I think people can trust you to be able to call you with these great questions.
Right. No, it's, research is 90% of our work, unfortunately. So both of the tax laws like we were talking about earlier, or the outlook in the investment markets, or what's going on.
Okay.
And you said fee only, not feeling.
Yeah.
You said it so fast, I thought
It's not a massage
did you just
policy.
say a feeling advisor and a fee only?
The fee only means is we don't usually earn commission on transactions. There are a few where commissions are earned, but for the most part, if someone gives me money, I just charge an asset fee, and I eat all the transaction costs.
Wow.
So it's more or less, again, it's an ongoing commitment where I hope I work with people for a number of years and build up a good relationship, because that's how money's supposed to work. You don't measure it in 3-month time frames, you measure it over 3 years. So that's what I'm trying to do for people. That's not what I do.
Well, that's good. Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
beholden to one company.
Not at all. Never. Don't want to be there.
Don't want to be there yet. Okay, we're going to cut to our third and final trivia question. Here is the commercial break trivia question, where the theme is World War I. What event in Sarajevo in 1914 is considered to have started World War I? You guys, you have your eyebrows raised on this one. No one's writing it down. Okay, we might have stumped them. As Lou reaches for the phone,
Log it into Google. Log it into Google. Here we go.
Yeah.
Google quick. Google quick.
I read about that recently. I was trying to remember the story.
Yeah. Okay,
It's very
what event
interesting.
in Sarajevo in 1914 is considered to have started World War I? And we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hunt, Lou Botmall of LPL Financial, America's favorite financial advisor. You like that?
Indeed, I like that tagline.
Because okay, here when we cut to the third commercial break, we asked this trivia question again. The theme is World War I. What event in Sarajevo in 1914 is considered to have started World War I?
I almost had it. It was a killing of Ferdinand.
For the Archduke Ferdinand, the assassination, yes. And I was mentioning off the air that World War II apparently started also in Sarajevo. And Mark made a comment.
Troublemakers.
Troublemakers, yeah.
Could we buy vacation property there?
Probably for 10 cents on the dollar or less. Lou, you have another interesting email there, didn't you?
Right, we got an email, and sometimes you need your head rocked around one way or another to say, hey, get back to the basics. So now that we're in fall and football season, I'm going to get back to the basics of blocking and tackling. And that is that October 15th is another tax deadline for those who extended, and you are allowed to fund certain retirement vehicles up until October 15th. You could start thinking about funding retirement vehicles from now until April 15th of next year. But let's just review the numbers, because they have moved significantly. In here we had Dan earlier who was talking about the estate tax, which moved several times. Much of that legislation was they changed the limits on tax deferred investing. The big key about tax deferred investing, I've talked about this before, I'm going to bring it up again. When you put money in, you don't pay tax on your income. That can do a couple of things. One is, you put $1 in, you pay less tax, because you make $1, maybe you're taxed 18%, 24%, 36%. You pay less. Yeah, you pay nice. You pay less than that. So that's a big, and then also you can lower your taxable income. If you're someone that makes between $60,000 and $80,000 and you lower your income by $5,000, does that bump you down a tax bracket? It's something to look at when you're doing your TurboTax or talk to your CPA about.
Well, when you go back, because the taxes are on a progressive thing, so
Right.
it's only the incremental amount when, because people, when they say, oh, I don't want to make more money because it pushes me into a higher tax bracket, that doesn't really count. It's only the extra $5,000 that gets taxed at a higher.
Right, exactly. So, no, that's a great point. And, but I mean, just think about it real quick. The downside, if there is one, is you can't touch this money until you're 59 and a half.
Well, you can, but there's just a penalty.
Yeah, if you do, you pay a 10% penalty on top of the income taxes on the money you take out in the year you take it out. So if you do lose your employment, people do go into their IRAs, and they do take money out, but theoretically they're not paying as much in taxes because they're not earning as much income.
Isn't there another rule, though, about taking it out over your lifetime or over
There's
5
the
years?
72T rule, which is if you're, I don't recommend it to people who are under 45 or under 50, but you can say, I got a client who retired at 56, and if you say I'm going to take a regular monthly amount from 56 to 59 and a half, you don't get assessed the penalty,
Okay.
but you have to pay the income tax. So,
Sure.
But he's already retired. He doesn't have any other employment, so it works out well. But real quick, let's just go over the basics again. It's fall. It's blocking and tackling season. The 49ers are doing well. We're hoping the Raiders turn it around pretty soon. But
the Giants did very well.
The
yesterday.
Giants did very well. Yes, that
Couple
was.
days ago.
And Buster Posey is the MVP of all the world right now.
Yeah.
So again, downside, the 10% penalty under 59 and a half. You can fund an IRA, which almost anybody can do with almost any kind of income, correct? $5,000. And if you're over 50 years of age, this is a new provision that George Bush put in, you can put another $1,000 into the plan. So it's a $6,000 tax deferral. Again, that's $6,000 you don't pay tax on and you save for a rainy day. You can invest with other people in the show like Mark. You can invest in bonds, you can invest in equities, you can invest whatever you want with that money. But in the end, you don't pay tax on, which is very nice. Then next is 401ks. This has gotten really, I want to say confusing, but the limit's been raised several times over the last few years. Right now, anyone can put up to $17,000 in the 401k. As we get closer to the month of December, December's the deadline for 401k. Some people think it's April, it is not. That's for IRAs. So you can fund an IRA up until April 15th, or your filing date. When it comes to 401ks, you have to fund it by December 31st. I do have clients that defer their last or second to last paycheck if they can afford it in their 401k, which you have to talk to your human resources departments about. It is something that's sponsored through employers. If you hear the term when the government's out there talking about how are we going to change civil servants, they say we're going to get off the defined benefit plan and go into the 401k. That's where you fund it yourself. So under 50 years of age, the limit's $17,000.
Is it a percentage, or you can go
Yeah,
up to 17?
go up to 70,000. If you
So if you
make
make 25,000, you can
put
put
up 17 in. Yes,
Oh,
that's what's
awesome.
crazy. If you move up, you make up to 60, you put 17. It doesn't really. There's no limit compared to IRAs. Also, if you're over 50 years of age, you're allowed to put an extra $5,500 on that, which brings you up to $21,500. Yeah, but $21,500. Again, you don't pay any taxes on. In my opinion, just back of the envelope math, you're saving $8,000 in taxes you're going to give the government.
And the
They're
thing
gonna
is,
spend.
it's not like you're throwing the money away. You still own it.
Yeah, it's yours.
You control
It's-
it. You're
it's-
just controlling it in a tax-deferred vehicle.
Right, it's protected in a trust and all those things. So, outside of that, there's simple IRAs where the limit's $11,500. That's kind of a turnkey 401k program that doesn't require much administration at all. So you're an employer, you have 3 employees, like, what do I want to start a 401k for? That's a headache. Look at a simple. It's a nice option, $11,500. Again, you can defer that
And
much.
the administration costs are probably not too high. on
No,
this at all.
they're minimal.
Okay,
minimal.
and if an employer is listening to this show, they can call you up.
They
and
can call
you
me
set that
out,
up.
and the catch up on that one's $2,500. So that's a pretty simple program. Again, most of these plans were set up so employers can't overfund them. Back before ERISA was developed, back in '74, employers used to put a bunch of money away. Employees put very little away.
And
So
then
these
they also
pro-
had the vesting schedule.
Right,
so they're
exactly,
Like, 100 years worth of vesting or something ridiculous.
No, there are some onerous programs actually. And then if you're over 45 years of age, another thing to think about, if you make an exorbitant amount of income, which I know it's tough for some people, almost everybody, but with defined benefit plans right now for people over 50, you can put anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000 away a year. That's a highly sophisticated, expensive program, but it's available. I have a realtor this year. She wrote a check for well over $50,000. She had a miracle year with some big real estate deals. So the opportunity is there to expand on that if you need to. And then real quick, I just want to talk about, as we get into the election, we had the debate this week with Biden. We have the fiscal cliff, and this is being brought up. There's actually other radio type advertisements out there. What's the fiscal cliff? What Dan was talking about earlier is part of the fiscal cliff. It's 4 key areas where we have to decide where's income taxes going to go, where are estate taxes going to go, where are capital gains taxes going to go, how will dividends be taxed, and then the debt ceiling on top of that. So all these things are going to be decided on top of the presidential election in the next 60 days. So the big as we roll out of here, remember volatility is the term you should get used to. We'll be talking in the next couple of weeks, and it will be bumpy.
Well, I heard I was listening to Armstrong and Getty earlier this week, and they had, I love that show, and they we were talking about how, listening to the debates, and how some people, they'll change their mind as to which president they're going to vote for based on the vice president's debate. And it's like, the vice president doesn't really do anything unless he's bending the ear of the president.
Is he the 101st or 100th vote in the Senate, I think, is the vice president's real
Yeah,
job.
101st.
101st?
And first, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Getting to the bottom of the barrel there.
Yeah, exactly.
We have nobody left. Who can count?
Well, that's a lot of great information, Lou.
Yeah, no, again, these are just basics. I like reviewing periodically because people need to take advantage of them.
Absolutely.
And I know it's going to be bouncy, but they're in the end, and Mark just said it earlier, and it's dead on point. The fact that we have no yields at the banks means that people are going to do other stuff. They're going to do hard money lending or investments,
Investing,
and they're going to do probably invest in equities if they can find decent ones that they like, because in the end, that's the only place to go. And
Yeah,
that's
the market's been up, and
right. That's part of the reason, is that people don't know where to put their money. And corporations which are not doing well, I'm not going to jump up and down and say the outlook's positive.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of earnings warnings. We're hitting a little bit of a soft patch. Confidence is up. Unemployment's down a little bit. Not enough, economically speaking. But in the end, where are you going to put your dollars? And corporations are sitting on more money now than they ever have in their history. So are they a weak place to put your money? No. They can pay your dividends. They can expand their businesses over time. Hopefully M&A picks up next year, but we'll wait. What they're waiting for is the tax referendum to come down to figure out what they can do when it comes to M&A.
Mark, we have just a very short time. Is there anything you want to add?
Well, the real estate market is still stable, and I still hear complaints from my borrower clients that they can't seem to find enough inventory to make offers on. So, we're all kind of wondering, and maybe the banks are kind of waiting for the political dust to settle before
Well,
they decide.
they are, because the government has just sued a large bank because of making reckless home mortgages for over a decade, and they said that they had to pay out over $190 million. And that's just one of these banks, unfortunately, is make it more than just their hand slap.
Where's the 190 million go? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Write your congressman on that.
Right.
All right, guys, thank you very much. It was good having Dan here. Okay, thoughts for the day. A lot of love making can unblock a stuffy nose because sex is a natural antihistamine. And it can also help combat asthma and hay fever. And since I got all that, maybe I'll get lucky tonight. Hope my wife is listening. Tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away 9 more free vacations for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.